Hello you, it's me. Today we're going to talk about Jasper Gibson's The Octopus Man. Jasper Gibson's a UK author from Derbyshire who published their first novel, A Bright Moon for Fools, in 2013. This one's an advanced copy. I think it's actually going to be released in January next year, 2021. Before I go into this review, I would like to say I'm going to be talking about stuff to do with mental health. So if that's something you don't like hearing or don't like discussing, maybe dip out now. Also, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I don't know really what I'm talking about with mental health stuff, medical stuff. So if I'm wrong, if I come across as at all disrespectful, it's not intentional, and please correct me. It's important to open up a dialogue about this kind of thing. So let's go. The book's about a guy called Tom. He's got a law degree. He's on track for a fantastic career. After a period in his college days of taking a lot of drugs over a short space of time, he starts to hear a voice in his head of a creature called Malamok, an octopus god, a survivor of a cataclysm that befell the previous universe. He's adamant that the god guides his life, punishes him for base thoughts and urges, with the intention of making him the first enlightened human. And this totally controls every aspect of Tom's life for about 20 years. To everybody else in his life, his ex-girlfriend, ex-lover, his sister, who's basically become his carer, and the few people left over from his pre-breakdown days, he is a middle-aged man in the serious throes of schizophrenia. He has mental health representatives that check on him pretty regularly. His medications constantly switched and changed, and he's pretty much one of the people that is lost in the system of UK mental health care. The book takes place when he has a breakdown on the tube, the subway in London, and gets sectioned in a secure mental health facility. He attempts to trick the god in his head so he can take part in a trial for a drug called Bildinocycline, a fictional drug, to alleviate the symptoms and make him disappear. Not at all because he thinks the god doesn't exist, or that he thinks he's crazy, but because he loves his sister, and he feels that in his heart that his mental health is ruining his sister's life. Pretty much the only person he cares about in the entire world. I haven't read many books that tackle mental health as a topic that aren't written about young characters. I think it's a topic that gets tackled a lot in YA, and in contemporary it seems to be overarchingly young characters as well. So it was interesting and encouraging for me to read a book about mental health that's about a middle-aged man. This book is very clearly written from the heart, and was actually inspired by the death of the author's cousin at the age of 40 after suffering, like Tom, with schizophrenia for 20 years. It's clearly a topic the author is very close to, and I think that it's written in a way, and I'm not somebody who has had to go through the pain of the mental health care system at this point in my life, but even though it's both funny and tragic, it doesn't feel like a disrespectful book. Reading this, you really do start to care for Tom a lot. It's written in first person, so you have a lot of insight about Tom's thought process and the justification for his actions. I think one big thing the book tackles through that is that when you think somebody else is irrational or crazy, as bonkers as it might seem, there is always a reason they're doing what they're doing. And most often the why isn't asked. The what is identified and stopped. You also have the fact that it's really not like Tom wants to be the way he is. He's fully aware that his actions cause distress to people, and he hates that. It really hammers in as well that even though Tom is mentally ill, he's not stupid. I think with mental illness, there's a lot of assumption that it goes hand in hand with intelligence in some way. There's a lot of interesting internal dialogue with Tom, and the inability to vocalize that and convey that to other people is one of the saddest bits of this book. He's smart. He has a law degree. He's off the cuff, witty and funny, and it takes a lot of brains to be like that. One passage in here early on that I really, really liked was, I want you to imagine seeing a child. Let's say your own child. Any child, it doesn't matter. Running out into the road. The child steps back, the car misses him, but you are trapped in that wild moment now, forever. There is an entire bureaucracy of suffering dedicated to helping you, but the only answer they've got is, get rid of the child. Following Tom through the story, you're constantly changing what you're rooting for with Tom because it constantly changes what's important for him. You root for him to trial the new drug and fix his relationship with his sister. You root for him to escape being sectioned, and then eventually you root for him to go back. You eventually partly even sympathize with him trying to recapture the feeling of schizophrenia after it seems like the drug trial might be working. The book talks about a lot of problems with the mental health care system that are very real in a lot of these institutions accusations of abuse might not be taken very seriously, and people are really at the whim of a team of people that may not know them on a personal level and have decided on paper what's best for them. It talks about how much people in facilities, like mental health care facilities, rely on having somebody on the outside to keep them anchored in the world. And the panic when you get cut off from those people, the panic when people stop visiting you, the panic when people cut you out of their life to put their own mental health first. One of the saddest things, I think, when I was reading this, is that people who are in the care of these institutions really may well be under the impression that when they come out, that their time there is to take them back to a period of their life before they were mentally ill. And when they get out, it'll all be back to normal, it'll be rosy again, everything will be exactly as it was before they went in. And that's very not how it works. You go into these places, come out a potentially very different person, potentially years later, potentially not knowing anybody. And you have to build your life up again from ground zero. And a lot of people will be very lucky if they have anybody to help them do that. It talks about how much recovery can be just learning to answer questions the right way, telling people what they want to hear, how much you might just need to lie and tell people you're fine. The only characters in this book I liked were the people that he meets when he's in the mental health care facility that are also sectioned like him, because they're the only people that treat him like a human and not a problem to be fixed. One point he raises in here that I thought was very interesting was how some things are crazy and some things are normal. He tries to compare it to a caregiver, him hearing the voice of an octopus god with somebody else hearing a voice of the Christian God and the voice of angels and how they're not being sectioned, and is pretty much shut down over it. I was drawing comparisons early on when I was reading this book to a movie called K-Pax, which is also a book. It's somebody who's sectioned in a mental health care facility and claims to be an alien, and you're always unsure whether they're telling the truth or not. But then eventually you can't really draw that comparison anymore because you are 100% aware that this is in Tom's head, but at the same time it hammers in that it is real for him, and you just want him to be okay. Even though this book has loads of bits in it that will make you laugh, it's a very sad book. I can't really tell you much about the plot, because it really is interesting and surprising. Just loved this book. It has really big One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest vibe, so if you like Kerouac, or however his last name is pronounced, read this. It's definitely literary fiction, but it's very accessible. I feel like anybody can go into this book and be emotionally very shaken by it, and the sort of stream of consciousness writing style that it uses. Not the kind of thing I usually read at all, but I loved it. So much that I'm going to give it 5 stars. So when this comes out, definitely get a copy and read it. So that's it. That's all I can really say about this one, without giving too much away. But it's definitely worth your time. It's a beautiful book. Weirdly beautiful. But yeah, thanks for tuning in for the review. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There's more book reviews coming all the time. Also follow me on Twitter, which I'll link down below as well. If you've read the book early, let me know what you think. If you're watching this in January after the book's come out, let me know what you think. So thanks for watching again, and I'll see you soon. Bye.